Hey, welcome back. Chip Reseburg here. Today I want to share something that can genuinely change how to understand this moment we're all in. And I mean the whole moment, not just the AI part. It starts with a sentence written in 1843. Ada Lovelace was translating a technical paper on Charles Babbage's analytical engine from French into English. The paper described a machine that didn't exist yet, a programmable computing device that Babbage had been designing and failing to fund for a decade. Lovelace added her own notes to the translation. The longest, Note G, contained what historians now call the first computer program. But the sentence that stopped me was earlier in the notes. Writing about the relationship between Babbage's machine and Jacquard's automated Loom, which had been controlling silk weaving patterns with punched cards since 1804, Lovelace wrote, "The analytical engine weaves algebraic patterns just as the Jacquard loom weaves flowers and leaves." What she was articulating in 1843 is that the mechanism that had encoded weaving knowledge into punched cards was the same class of mechanism that could, in principle, encode any form of human judgment expressible as symbolic rules. She went further, explicitly stating that the machine's operations were not limited to numbers, but extended to any objects for which operations and relations could be defined. She was describing the theoretical opening of the cognitive loop, 180 years before we started calling it AI. The lineage is worth tracing because it changes how you understand where we actually are. Joseph Marie Jacquard demonstrated his punch card loom in Lyon in 1804. The loom encoded weaving patterns, knowledge that had previously lived in the hands and memory of skilled weavers, into a chain of punched cards. The card could be copied. It could be sent elsewhere. The same pattern could be produced by a different loom without the original weaver present. The instructions had been separated from the body that held them. Babbage saw a portrait of Jacquard woven in silk on one of these looms, so fine it could be mistaken for an engraving. He kept it, he returned to it, and he borrowed the mechanism. The analytical engine would use punched cards not to control silk threads, but to feed operation sequences to a calculating machine. The domain changed. The mechanism was identical. Then Lovelace saw what Babbage himself had not fully articulated. The principle didn't stop at algebra. If you could encode any rule-governed operation into punched cards and execute it mechanically, then the question was just which domains of human judgment could be expressed as rules. In 1843, the answer was far fewer than today. But the theoretical ceiling she saw was much higher than anyone around her was saying. The cognitive loop opened as a theoretical proposition in a footnote to a translation. It has been closing, slowly, then less slowly, ever since. Now, you're probably already working with AI in some form, or actively deciding how to engage with it. So the "should I engage" question is likely not what's running for you. The quieter question, the one I find more interesting and more honest, is something like, am I thinking about this correctly? Is my posture toward this technology the right one? Here's what the Lovelace thread adds to that question. We are not at the beginning of this story, and we're not at the end. We're at a specific inflection point in a 220-year lineage. Every prior iteration of this same pattern, encoding human judgment into a mechanism that can execute it, has followed the same arc. The Jacquard weavers who thrived moved from the production loop into the design loop, from weaving to card design. The machinists who built careers in the CNC era moved from hand operations to programming, encoding the judgment their hands had embodied into the instructions the machines would run. The automotive workers who built lasting careers in the robotic era became the people who designed, integrated, and maintained the systems that replaced the floor operations. In every iteration, the humans who understood the new configuration moved their expertise upstream into the design layer. The expertise didn't disappear, it was promoted. What AI is doing is extending this to the cognitive domain, to the judgment categories that previous iterations couldn't reach. That's the genuine novelty. Not the mechanism, but the domain. The structure is identical to what Lovelace saw in 1843. The scope is wider. And the design loop, the layer where human judgment governs how the system runs, rather than executing the individual operation, is opening again, right now, for people who understand what's happening. I've found the gradient frame more useful than the cliff frame, for myself and for the people I work with. The cliff frame says, this is a discontinuous break with everything before it, retreat or leap. The gradient frame says, this is the latest step in a staircase that has been climbing since 1804. Orientation is what's required, not panic and not heroism. The gradient frame is more historically accurate, and it's more practically useful because it tells you what the upstream position looks like and what the people who found it had in common. They understood the new configuration before it was fully in place. They moved their expertise to the design layer while the transition was still forming. They didn't abandon what they knew. They repositioned it at the point in the workflow where human judgment was irreplaceable, the point where the system needed someone who understood the domain, the client, the failure modes, the meaning of the output. That's the position. That's where the cognitive loop requires the human who built the expertise the AI is now running on. We are the first generation living through the execution of what Lovelace saw coming. That's not terrifying. It's remarkable, in the original sense of the word. It deserves to be understood at its full scale before being navigated. If this framing landed for you, I'd genuinely love to hear what shifted, or what you're still sitting with. Leave a comment at the end of this article and let me know. And if you want to go deeper into the full 220-year historical thread, from Jacquard through Babbage, through Lovelace, through Ford, all the way to now, I've got a long-form piece on my main website linked at the end of this article. That's the full staircase. If you found today's piece useful, subscribe to the newsletter so you don't miss what's coming next. And if you'd like to get a complete production-quality AI toolkit, the same kind of system I use every day, for free, just register for the Focus on Solutions group community using the link at the end of this article. It's there waiting for you. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in the next one.